when I was a little child, because my journey began with my mom. So I have two proverbs that I picked out that best describes my mom. I tried to memorize them, but I was too nervous doing this, so I couldn't get them in my head. The first one is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And the second one is Proverbs 31:26. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. And those two sum up my mom. She was first generation Italian-American. Her parents came over from Bari, Italy. And they settled in Brooklyn, and then they moved over to Jersey City, which is where I'm from, which is right across from Brooklyn. And she was just such a faithful woman. I mean, she was filled with the Holy Spirit. She was filled with the grace of God. She raised all of us, the four of us. She had 3 boys first. I was later in life and the only girl. And as far back as I can remember, we went to church. We were brought up Catholic. We went to church. We went to confession. We celebrated all the feast days. We did but we said our prayers at night. And when she disciplined us, because I'm not going to sugarcoat, my mom was tough. She was a disciplinarian. She loved you, but when she gave you a certain look, she didn't have to say a word. You knew she meant business, and you straightened up and flew right. So I grew up it's kind of old-fashioned, you know. You ate what was on your plate. You didn't get anything to drink till you were halfway done with your dinner. She was tough, but she was very loving, and there wasn't a stranger. No one was a stranger to my mom. She could talk to anyone. And people would come to her with their prayer requests. I think just talking to her, they knew that she was faithful. So every day, and I can remember this from as far back as I can go, after breakfast and after dinner, she would sit in a quiet spot with her prayers and the list of the people she needed to pray for. She'd call her sisters up, so they were ready at the same time, and the 3 sisters would pray for those people at the same time, twice a day, every day. And this is, I think, how my children grew up seeing her also in the house. When she lived with us for 16 years, when she got older, she did the same routine, and they saw that, and they saw that in her. And when we went to church and came home, she'd grill us on what was said, what was the gospel, what did you learn from that. And so my background since I was born was faithful. She was always there for people, always helping people, always giving. And we didn't have that much. By the time I was old enough to be aware of things, my father was sick, my 3 brothers were already married and out of the house. She had to go back to work. But in her lifetime, she raised her 4 children. She cooked, she cleaned. You know, she was involved in the church. She got a job when she had to get a job. She took care of my father when he was sick. And she did all this, and my mother was handicapped. She had the use of her left arm. She had no use of her right arm. So to this day, I can dress a baby and change a diaper with one hand because I learned from my mom. I mean, she could flip them around and do the thing, and she had one arm. You never knew it. And I'll tell you, when I first realized my mom was handicapped was when I was 10. And one of my friends, you know how kids are, they, you know, oh, your mom is, you know, handicapped. How do you live with a handicap? And I'd say, my mother's handicapped? You know, I had to go home and look and see. We never really realized. My mother held her head up. She was 5'4", but she stood like she was 5'7". She always had a smile. She was always there for people. She never talked about her handicap. She never moaned or groaned about her handicap. And then I realized why she had a low tolerance for people who were handicapped and wanted pity instead of, just persevering because of her faith. And she thanked God every day for her children and her family, and she prayed for people. And that is the foundation that I grew up with. It doesn't matter what denomination it was. We were Christian, and we were very tight. To this day, my brothers and I are still very faithful. And if it wasn't for my mother's faith, I myself know that I would not be here today. because her faith carried me through that difficult time I keep telling everybody about at church that I had when we first moved here. My husband and I retired, and we were living in an apartment, and my daughter Laura fell in love with a Virginia Beach boy, and he lived up north for 10 years, but the cold winters kind of got to him, so they packed up and moved down here to Virginia Beach, and that was fine. We came down to visit once in a while, but then she got pregnant with my grandson, and our only grandchild, so we packed up and we moved down. And 3 weeks later, after we moved down, I was all unpacked and ready. I had an atrial fibrillation attack because I have AFib for years, but this time from the unpacking. So I went to the hospital, they did a CAT scan, trying to get through it fast. They did a CAT scan, they found a mass in my back. So that was shocking. And then I had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks because I had to go through, I don't know, 50 tests and scans and blood work. And one night by myself in the hospital room, I think I was just about ready to lose it, you know, because I didn't know what was happening. I just had my first grandchild. I was down here to take care of him while she went to work, her and her husband. What am I going to do? I was going crazy, and I was just about to lose it all by myself in the dark, and I know I heard my mother's voice. Sit up and pray. I know I heard my mother say that, you know. And I sat up in bed, and I wiped my eyes, and I looked around, and I bowed my head, and I said thank you to my mother. And then I prayed. I prayed to the Holy Spirit. I prayed to Jesus. I left my burdens at his cross. I said, I leave everything, Jesus, at the foot of your cross because I don't really know how to handle this. You know, I don't know how my family's going to handle it. I want to live to see my grandson. I'd like to be there when he's growing up. But whatever your will, let it be done. And so I had that operation, and they checked everything out, no more cancer when they got that out. Then I went, and they found out it was stage 4 breast cancer. So I went, I had to recover for about 4 weeks from this operation. I went, and I had double mastectomy, and the pathology report came back, no cancer. So I know that it was my faith. I know in my heart that the Holy Spirit was with me, and I know in my heart that it was because this is the path. God put me on this path. And I tell people all the time that, you know, when I gave myself up that day at the hospital, I cannot describe the feeling that came over me. It was, I don't know, just something that fills you, enlightens you, and just, there are no words to describe it. If you can fully give yourself up, there's just a blessing that comes over you and a peace. And from that day on, people would say to me, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. I'm like my mother, stands tall, face forward, and just, God's with me, I can do anything. And in fact, I have it on my phone case, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's what I say all the time. I thank God every morning for the day, and I say, you know, this is the day that you made, Lord, thank you for the blessing that you've given me. And then I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Honestly, I'm stage 4, you know, and I thank God. It'll be 3 years in August, and when he's ready, I'm ready, and he knows that. But I also think that my grandson came at the right time. I think God sent him to me because I took care of him through all the chemo, through all the surgeries. I just kept taking care of him. He was dropped off. I took him. He slept, I slept. We just had a great time together. So God blessed me all the way, and I have to say that we were living in an apartment, and after all the surgeries, I said to myself, I don't really want to be in this apartment anymore because really the memories here and everything, I just want to get out. And it was a beautiful apartment. I said, why don't we buy a house? And my husband said, we can't buy a house. I'm 63 years old. I'm not going to get a house. So he applied for a VA loan. 2 weeks later, we were approved, and we started looking at houses, and I kept saying, you know, I really love the brick ranch houses down here. I really love the brick ranch houses. And this one brick ranch kept coming up, and it was way out of our budget. And I said, oh, why do I keep going back to it? The computer keeps bringing me back to that house. Well, anyway, the last day we were looking, we had 12 houses to look at, and this was the last house. I said to the real estate agent, why did you bring me to this house? We can't afford it. He said, look at the listing. They lowered it down to our price range. And this is the best part, right, Lisa? The best part. The day we're moving in, I find out that Pastor Woody is my neighbor next door. And he came in with the boys and introduced himself. And I said, come on in. Furniture's going all over the place. And we had a really nice conversation. So I really know, I believe in my heart that the path that God set me on, I had the greatest foundation in the world, my mom. And I had because of her, I had my faith. I got through the surgery. I got through everything. We're doing great. I'm in a house that I wanted that I didn't think I could get in. I'm next door to Lisa and Woody, and now he invites us to his church. We kept putting it off and putting it off, and then we finally went, and here I am today. So here's where my faith and God's plan for me has led me since I was a little girl, right here with this family that I love so much. So, that's it. I have one more little thing to remember for moms. God gave us mothers to guide and teach us, to lay the foundation of our faith in Him. And I believe that. Without my mother's faith, I wouldn't be here. Thank you.